like to send about allergens, what would that message be?
That there is hope. There is definitely hope. Your child will have the best life. The best life. You just have to fight for them to get it. You have to, yeah, you might have to be creative about some things, and you might not do everything the same way. That doesn't mean they can't have those experiences.
Introduce yourself. Would you tell us what you do, and who you are?
Okay. So, do you want me to talk to you directly, or you want me to talk to the camera?
Talk to her.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay. All right. So, my name is Chaundra Williams. I am a school counselor by trade, professionally, but I also have a nonprofit called Finding Food Freedom. I am the mother of the most amazing little boy. He's 7 years old. His name is Calvin. And I am a person who is walking through life and learning as I go.
That's good stuff.
Thank you.
We're here today to talk about some allergens, like and like what the difficulties are and how do you navigate those. And so, could you tell us what your child's allergens are or were?
Yes. So Calvin was diagnosed at 5 months old, 5 to 6 months old, as being anaphylactic to egg, dairy, wheat, peanuts, tree nuts, shellfish. So 6 of the top 8 food allergens. So yeah, those are his allergies. By the grace of God, he is in a program where he is growing through them, which I'm very, very thankful for. But the challenge after he was diagnosed was unreal. Like trying to figure out, he's 5 months old, so I'm still nursing him. I'm finding out that the things that he is allergic to, I can't eat because he's getting them through my system. So I had to rearrange the way that I was eating in order to be able to provide for him. And then when he started eating actual table foods, finding things that he could eat. So almost all of his foods were handmade by me, because otherwise there was a chance that they could have come in contact with something else, like a baby food plant, things like that. So yeah, for the majority of his life, everything that he's had has been made by me. So finding recipes for him, finding places where he could go to daycare where people would understand, arranging play groups. Even now I'm the class mom in his classroom so that I can make sure that he is included. Yeah, it's been a walk. It's definitely been a journey. Definitely.
So when you first found out, what kind of information, like how did you get information about like what to cook for him, what to do? Because first, like what was his reaction to the allergens?
So the reason that we even found out is because Calvin, he was having severe eczema that was not going away. Like we were putting all of the steroid creams on him and it was not getting better. He would scratch so bad that he would bleed. The pigment in his skin, he's brown like me, so the pigment in his skin was completely gone. In his face, his face was roughly the same color as like a manila folder. Like his pigment just left. He was constantly itchy. He would rub his eyes raw so they would be bright red, not necessarily his eye, but the skin around his eye. I used to have to buy like little mittens to put on him. Those didn't work, but I ended up putting socks on his hands so he would not scratch himself at night. And he was not sleeping at all. And I think that was because he was so uncomfortable. So I took him to the doctor and I thought, surely this is just environmental allergies because my family has environmental allergies. And then they did a blood test and it came back as positive for oats, wheat, rye, and soy. And so we thought that was it from the blood test. Then we went to an allergist who did a skin test, and that's when we found out that it was eggs, dairy, wheat, tree nuts, and peanuts.
Okay, how old was he when you got the test?
5 months, about 5.5 months at this time.
Oh, because I heard it was 2 years old.
No, Calvin was still being breastfed. He was a tiny baby, and we found out. So they were able to test him way before 2 years old. And then we didn't find out until he was about 4 that shellfish was also added. And then every year that we were going to the doctor, despite avoiding the foods like they told us to, his numbers were increasing. And then the doctors had also told me to give him like this peanut Cheeto food, to give that to him so he could avoid having a peanut allergy, because originally it wasn't peanut the first year of testing. And I gave it to him, and a couple hours later he threw up. And that's when we also learned that not only was he anaphylactic to those things, but he also has delayed reactions. So usually for him, if he comes into contact with something, he's not going to have a reaction immediately. Like most people think anaphylaxis is going to happen, seconds to minutes later. His, for the most part, would happen hours later. Now, he did have a few where it did happen like in the next few minutes, but it was like 30 minutes later. It wasn't like 5 minutes. So his reactions were considered delayed reactions. But yeah, so that's how we found out.
Okay. And what was your response? I mean, while you're waiting, he's scratching, he's itchy, he's not sleeping, so he's irritable. He and it's a struggle because you're trying to figure out what's going on. But did you initially think it was an allergen?
No, initially I was thinking that it was environmental allergies, because like I said, most of my family has environmental allergies, so I was expecting, it's probably dust or pollen or something like that, because he was also born in October. So by the time he was 5 months old, that's October, November, December, January, February, March.
Yeah,
so that's spring. And so all of these new things are coming out in terms of allergens, outdoor allergens or environmental. And so I'm thinking that's what it was. But then when we tested him and we found out it was food, I was shocked. I was hurt and upset, because I had to grieve the life that I thought my son was going to have. When you find out that your child has a food allergy, your mind kind of goes to all these things that they're not going to be able to do. So that meant no smash cake birthday cake picture. That meant no pizza. That meant no fast food restaurants or restaurants in general. That meant having to be really considerate when it comes to play dates and where those things are going to be, because if a child's eating peanut butter crackers and they touch things and then my son touches things, is he going to have a reaction? That meant extra planning for birthday parties and extra planning for school events, wondering whether or not he was going to be ostracized. For some children, their allergies are so bad that they have to sit at separate tables during events. And I didn't want that life for him. I didn't want him to grow up feeling alone. That meant having to educate family and friends. That meant having to carry an EpiPen and having to teach him how to use an EpiPen to make sure that he's always safe. That meant so many things that I thought would be different. When we travel, I can't just go and get something when we're there. I have to always bring his food. That meant I had to read labels for his lotions, shampoos, conditioners, toothpaste. There were just all these things.
Sodium's in everything.
Yeah. So there were all these things that I had to think about that I had never considered before. And that's a very different lifestyle from what you think you're going to have when you find out that you're having a child.
And so, how did your family receive? Like, did they believe you? Did they question it, or were they open?
I think in the beginning, it's not that they didn't believe me. I think understanding the severity of what it meant, that understanding just was not there. So it turned out that at my home church, there was a little boy who had a peanut allergy, and he got a hold of like peanut butter crackers or peanut butter sandwich, something like that. And then his lips became very swollen and enlarged, and he was having problems breathing. And once my parents saw that, then they understood. And then it turns out my grandmother had a home daycare, and she had a child there who also had food allergies. So thankfully my grandmother had some experience. Extended family, I just had to make them aware and teach them, hey, Calvin has this food allergy. If you want to be around him, that's completely fine. But if you're going to hold him or kiss him, I'm going to need you to make sure that you wipe your mouth very well. You're going to have to brush your teeth, like things like that. Make sure your hands are washed, things like that, because he was already exhibiting so many reactions through his skin. I did not want to also have like someone kiss him who ate a peanut butter sandwich, and now I don't know if that's going to create like a welt or a mark. These things are not intentional, but these are things you have to consider. And I think a lot of times for food allergy parents, we are kind of told that we are hypochondriacs or that it's not that serious. And people in general don't understand the mental load that is there when you have a child who has allergies, and so they tend not to believe you or tend not to take it seriously, and not understand how that can be life-threatening. You may not think so, but it could be. If you gave a child a cheeseburger and that child is allergic to dairy, you can't just take off the cheese if the cheese has already been on there. But people are like, oh yeah, I took it off, it's fine. And now the child is in the hospital and they're like, I didn't know. Well, you just don't want to take those chances. So yeah.
And I heard you say you taught him how to use the EpiPen at what age?
Yes, I taught Calvin how to use the EpiPen. He was about 4.5. It was a very painful couple weeks for me because he decided with the training EpiPen, he was gonna EpiPen me. So I would be sitting there, and next thing I know, he'd be like, "You're having a reaction." Boom, and I'm like, "My shoulder." But also, I'm glad you know. So, yes, for about 2 weeks, he was very happy to EpiPen me with the trainer. So yes, but I taught him how to use like a traditional EpiPen trainer. He also has one that's called the AviQ where it talks to you, and so I taught him how to use that, because what happens if he's in a situation and an adult there doesn't know how to use the EpiPen, or they're scared to use it? Well, he's got to know what to do. So yeah.
Now, I was told that you're supposed to call 911 first, no?
So they always say epi first, epi fast. So you epi and call 911. So it's not like at least for me, for my preferences, it's not one or the other. I'm going to EpiPen and call 911. I'm not going to just epi and be like, oh, you're okay now. Okay. No, we're not doing that. But you are going to call 911, because if something happens and they need to be transported, then you already need to have the ambulance on the way, and then you have to tell the ambulance that you EpiPen them, around what time you EpiPen them, and tell them to send an ambulance that also has Epi on board. So yeah.
Okay. As a couple, how you guys decided to navigate?
Well,
do you want to talk about that?
I don't know, because really we didn't decide to navigate. It was he followed my directions. So there wasn't like a we, it was like a me. And then, yeah.
Okay. because usually one parent do take lead,
Mm-hmm.
is what I noticed at the school.
Yeah.
One parent is the parent that educated themselves, learned, and got all the details.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it is mom, but every now and then daddy will show up doing something like real kind of extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like how did you deal with the parties and the planning and like what about when you're flying and they serve peanuts?
Okay.
You know, cause and then like is his allergy airborne?
So for him, he doesn't have airborne allergies, which I'm
Okay.
very thankful for. But when we travel, I go ahead and like when I do his ticket, I will put on there like the special section, peanut, tree nut allergy. And for some airlines, what they'll do is they'll clear a space around you. It's like three rows ahead of you and 3 rows behind you. They will not serve nuts. And so that worked out very well. Now we did do that once, and then the family in front of us had a massive tray of mixed nuts. And so I'm like behind them and I stick my hand through. I'm like, excuse me, my son has a nut allergy. And she goes, oh, okay, I didn't know. And she put them away. Halfway through the flight, though, her child spilled the entire thing of nuts. So I was very happy that my child's allergy is not airborne. But I have learned to speak up for him in those situations, and I've taught him to speak up. So when people offer him things, he'll just go, no, I can't have that, I'm allergic. And then
he's allergic to everything, huh? That's what he does.
That's pretty much what he does, yes. Mm-hmm. And then I also did like a word, a safe word between me and him. So if someone's gonna offer him a food, if they don't say the safe word, then he knows they haven't talked to me and he can't have it.
That's for family, you mean?
So that's for anyone. So say he's at a friend's house and the parent's like, oh, hey, Calvin, I have these popsicles. Would you like a popsicle? And then he'll wait, and if they don't say the word, then he won't take the popsicle. So yeah. Yeah. I figured that's like a safe way as well. In case he doesn't remember to always say something, he can remember the word. There's like a twofold strategy there to make sure he's safe.
Because he's so young.
And then also anyone whose house he goes to, I have trained them on what his allergies are, what anaphylaxis is, what it looks like, and then he usually goes with his anaphylaxis kit or his EpiPen or something like that, unless he's just playing outside. If he's playing outside, I'm usually outside somewhere, so if something were to happen, then I would be there. But yeah, so I've trained neighbors, my parents, family members. I train the staff at his school. I literally come in for all the staff and do the entire school training and all that to make sure he's safe.
And how does the school receive it?
Oh, the school loves it. They keep asking me to come back every year. So far I've done it 2 or 3 times. I'll probably do it again next year. And then I am also the room mom. So whenever they have events and things like that, I'm in charge of making sure that there's food there that everyone can eat, because he's not the only kid in the classroom who has food allergies. Usually in every classroom in America, there's going to be roughly 2 kids that have food allergies. In his class this year, there were 4. And so I wanted to make sure that we had snacks and things that everyone could eat. So I will get together with those parents and I'll say, what are your child's allergies, what's safe, and then I'll make sure whatever foods come to the class is something everyone can eat so they don't feel alone in any way. And then I also tell parents, like if it's for birthdays, you don't always have to do food. So I'll say, think craft with a C, not craft with a K. So think craft, not craft, and ask them to bring like birthday crafts and things that the kids can do.
So tell me, what does that training look like? Like, teach me.
Okay. So when I come in and I do the training, I have a whole PowerPoint presentation in the back.
It's for real.
Yes, I have a whole PowerPoint presentation, and I talk to them about anaphylaxis and how anaphylaxis, when it occurs, well, actually back up. I talk to them about food allergies first. First, I introduce the concept of the top 8 food allergens. I list them out, and then once we go through that, I tell them that there are places in their classroom that they may never have considered a food allergen being. So for example, some dust-free chalks have dairy in them. Some tempura paints have egg base in them. When you do the Easter egg hunts, you know, the eggs that you smash that have confetti and things in them, that's an actual eggshell. So so if a child is allergic to egg, you need to be careful, because if their allergy is tactile, you may have introduced something to them. People think about doing using noodles or cereal as like counters or pasta art, things like that you might want to consider. But there are a number of different places where you may have an allergen in your classroom and you didn't even think about it. So, and that's not something to scare them, it's just to make them aware. So I will go through that with them. I'll talk to them about what anaphylaxis looks like, and anaphylaxis requires 2 body systems, not just one. So for example, if you have someone who has hives and coughing, that's anaphylaxis. But if it's just coughing, it's not. Now that doesn't mean that you shouldn't still call 911, but usually anaphylaxis is indicated by 2 or more body systems. So that's something that they need to know. I bring in the EpiPen trainers, and we go through step by step. I show them, and then I pass them around so that the teachers can all get experience with their partner EpiPenning one another, so they know what it's like. So we do that. I give them alternatives that they can use in their classroom. So for example, if they are writing with dustless chalk on a board, although who uses a chalkboard now, but just as an example, if you have dustless chalk, instead you might want to use dry erase markers on a board or something like that, like just alternatives to consider. Instead of using M&Ms as a counter, you might want to use like emoji erasers or something like that, where it's still fun, but it's not a food item. And then reminding them that when you have birthdays, think craft, not craft. You don't always have to celebrate using food. You can also have fun activities, things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't even considered all the things in the classroom that, like, my kids came home with all the noodle art and all those different things. So if you got gluten allergen, you got celiacs, how somebody's not thinking.
Especially when kids are small, they may be like, "Oh, this looks like food. I'm gonna put it in my mouth." Now, you didn't intend for them to use macaroni art as food, but they may have. You know, if you want to use macaroni art, then use brown rice pasta, as long as your kids don't have a rice allergy. But use brown rice pasta as opposed to using egg noodles or your traditional wheat noodles, things like that.
I got F pies. I have some kids that have F pies, so they're allergic to rice and oats and some sweet potatoes.
Yep, so you have to think about things like that too. There are kids who have chickpea allergies, so you can't use chickpea pasta.
That's
you
right.
know, you have to consider all those things. I would probably recommend staying away from foods as an art project. But yeah.
Just in case, You know, now they have sweet potato pastas, they have zucchini pastas. I mean, like, not the zucchini noodles, but
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they use them as the main ingredient in making the pasta. There was another one that I had to tell teachers about that they didn't think about. Play-Doh has wheat in it. I actually interviewed a parent who the teacher was like, "Oh, your daughter will be fine. She's not actually eating it." And the mom said no.
Because they will put it in their mouths.
Right. But the teacher gave her Play-Doh anyway, and just from manipulating it with her hands became enlarged and swollen. And so the mom was like, "Well, what happened?" And the teacher's like, "I didn't know." Well, Mom did tell you. You know, like mom did tell you.
She did tell you.
So
it's because people who are not dealing with it, they're not thinking about the severity of it. They're not considering all that. Because I'm telling you, even though I do it in the kitchen, I have not considered like what all a teacher may have to go through inside of the classroom. Things that what's that stuff when you're trying to get the kids to like feel it, like sensory stuff.
Yeah.
And so they may use a lot of different types of things for sensory. And food is cheap.
It
like
is.
The pasta is cheap, right? The rice is cheap. So that's probably why teachers are probably using it too.
Which makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. But I think usually when you have a parent, an allergy parent, as long as they are able to, if you tell them in advance, they will provide substitutes for their child. Because I have done that, and I have known countless other parents who've done that. When I wasn't a room mom, when Calvin was in preschool, and they would have like cake and things like that, I would go out and I would find alternative flour sources, and I'm making like little sweet potato, what were those things? Like little sweet potato bars, little things like that. And I'd be all excited, and I'd bring it to him and give it to him at school, and he would not eat it. But he had it though. So it at least looked like what everyone else had.
That first pasta, that first stuff they were making was really bad.
Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah. Even the flour, the way the flour tasted was horrible. But today, with all the different variety, I mean, I don't know, I would probably say now is probably the best time to have an allergen, because there's so much convenience. So do you buy him things now, like, or are you still making all his things?
So for the most part, I still make all of his things. There are things that I'm able to buy him because of the program that he's in, so he can now eat peanuts and things like that. So he had his first Chick-fil-A, which he was super excited about. But before,
is it because they process stuff with nuts?
Because of the peanut oil and things like that. Like, it's super refined, and so they say that there's almost no peanut protein in there, but I was not taking any chances. So until the doctor said he could have it, he didn't have it.
Okay.
But before that, I was making homemade chicken nuggets with alternative flour, and then oven baked French fries. And I, like, for his birthday, I took it to his school, and I went and I got a McDonald's Happy Meal box, just the box. And then I put the nuggets in there and the French fries, and I brought it to him at school. And I said, "Look, Calvin, it's like a Happy Meal." He was like, "No, it's McMommy's." And I was like, "Oh, my baby." But yeah.
Do you like to cook?
I do like to cook, but within reason, because I get tired. So
I mean, I was just thinking, like, if you was the parent that didn't like to cook, and then this happens during the time that it happens for you, then what? Right?
So if this were to happen and I did not like to cook, I would probably get a whole bunch of frozen vegetables and just use the frozen vegetables and then season those and then do it that way. So my child would probably be eating mostly that. Probably little to no seasoning, just the frozen vegetables if I did not like to cook. But I think that there are ways around it. Thankfully now there are so many alternatives, and like, people have put out all of these recipes